Hello and welcome to the Continuous Testing with TestRail webinar with our special guest, AgileTestware's Sergey Oplavin. I'm not sure I said that right, Oplavin, Sergey Oplavin. During the webinar, we're going to be talking about how organizations can use AgileTestWare solutions with their continuous integration and continuous delivery processes and have a single view into their quality metrics by combining those with TestRail. We're going to introduce AgileTestWare and Sergey is going to talk about issues with respect to measuring software project quality. He's going to introduce us to the AgileTestWare tool, Pangolin, and he's going to show us how to integrate continuous integration systems with TestRail using the Pangolin tool. And then he's going to demo all of that to us as well. After Sergey's done most of that, we're going to have some time for questions and answers, and hopefully we will be able to address some of the specifics relating to some of the stuff that Sergey has presented. Just by way of housekeeping, our usual announcements, we'll be keeping everybody on mute throughout the entire webinar. If you do have questions or comments, please do feel free to share those in the chat room, and we'll pick them up during the Q&A session at the end of the webinar. We're aiming for something less than an hour, so we should have some time for questions and answers. We're recording the webinar and we will share it with you via the Guru blog as soon as the video has been processed. Normally that's the next day, so you can catch up with the video on our blog probably tomorrow. Just so you know who I am, I'm Simon Knight. I'm the TestRail product manager. If you've got any issues, questions, suggestions about how we can improve your TestRail experience, please do feel free to reach out. Before I became product manager, I spent 10 years or so working mainly as an independent software testing consultant, working with teams of all shapes, sizes, and geographies to help them deliver better software, faster, and with less bugs. Some of you may also know me from my work with the Ministry of Testing, where I hosted several Test Bash conferences and helped produce some of the training for their testing dojo. If you want to stay in touch with me, you can do that via the socials, on the Guru blog, or via my personal blog. So one of the things that we want to talk about in this webinar is continuous testing. And continuous testing is a term that gets used a lot in test management and software testing verbiage these days, particularly costs for dramatic effect by vendors such as ourselves, who may or may not be trying to pitch a solution to the problem the notion of continuous testing might present. So we wanted to try and answer that question before we dig into the details of the webinar proper. My preferred way of thinking about what continuous testing is or looks like is this one. So this was drawn up by my testing associate Dan Ashby, and you can still find it on his blog via the link on the screen. And what it kind of conveys is the idea that in an agile DevOps world of continuous pretty much everything, you should be thinking about and planning for testing at every stage of your development and release lifecycle. To the extent you can, depending on the specifics of your product, your team, the stack you're working with, and the numerous other variables of your software project or your product, you should actively be testing at every stage of the process, i.e. continuously, hence the term. For most teams, it makes sense to automate as many of those tests as possible at the various layers of their stacks by means of unit, integration, acceptance, user interface, monitoring, and various other testing mechanisms that can be used to obtain actionable insights about the quality of your product at the various layers of the stack you're working with. Once you've automated those tests, you need a reliable means of organizing them, controlling them, and reporting on the results. For many people, that means using some kind of continuous integration server to build and run tests, or to manage the build and the execution of tests against their software. For teams using TestRail, it also means managing, updating, and reporting on those tests, often via the TestRail API. And we get a lot of questions along the lines of, well, what's the best way to use TestRail with our automation, our continuous integration, our continuous delivery pipeline? Which brings us to today's special guests, AgileTestWare. So speaking today on behalf of AgileTestWare is Sergey Oplavin. Over the course of his career, Sergey has built a variety of integrations with other testing tools. He's worked closely with lots of different customers to help them design and build custom workflows using continuous integration systems such as Jenkins, Bamboo, TeamCity, and various others. And before AgileTestWare, Sergey used to work as a Java developer. He's also married with a 2-year-old daughter. So I can see that you're probably looking at this picture and thinking, hey, is Sergey available? Well, sadly not. But without further ado, Sergey is going to show us how we can answer some of those continuous testing questions using the AgileTestWare toolset and TestRail. So Sergey, over to you.
Yep. Thank you, Simon, and hello, everyone.
I'm just looking for you to hand over the controls. Yeah. Bear with me a second. There we go. You should have it now.
Okay. Yeah. So thank you again. And before I start with the main part of my webinar, let me just say a couple of words about AgileTestWare. So we are a small company based in San Francisco, California, and we have been working for 8 years already, mostly focusing on delivery out-of-the-box solution for CI enablement. And since that, we developed a variety of solutions for integrating open source and commercial testing tools and frameworks with HPLM and HP Performance Center. But recently, we started to look into TestRail and released a variety of new solutions for integrating CI applications like Jenkins, TeamCity, and Bamboo with TestRail to support continuous testing approach. And we also closely work with our customers developing new plugins and features for CI applications, and also do support critical open source plugins. Okay, so, and working with our customers, we see that the big challenge is how do you make sense of all of testing data across different teams and different functions. So in many companies, there are a variety of testing activities. So for example, it's a manual testing of various applications, then automated testing of the same, and hopefully unit testing. And the results of these testing related tasks are very different and typically trapped in various different systems. So for example, for automated test results, we usually use CI systems, while for manual testing activities, usually we use some test case management system like TestRail, or Excel sheets, or even sometimes just an emails. So we are in the situation of multiple sources of information about testing results, and basically none of them can show the full pictures. Yeah, so then the question is, what if we can bring them all into one natural place? And could we make actually better decisions based on having all the data in one place? So here is a diagram of a typical testing process. And there are three groups of people and activities. And the first one is the manual testers who run test cases on and record execution into some test case management system and TestRail, for example. And on the other hand, there are automation engineers, which typically running their test in CI application like Jenkins, Bamboo, or TeamCity, or anything else. And eventually, there are project and release managers who have to figure out the health of a release by coordinating between these two groups. And this might become a problem because of various reasons. So the first one, of course, is communication, and especially in large organizations, the coordination between those groups can be a very time-consuming because of a lot of emails going back and forth, meetings, and so on and so on. And also, this can be very error-prone. So the second one is that the CI applications are not really designed for aggregating test results and creating appropriate dashboards, which are convenient for release managers. And eventually the third one, I think the most important, that there is no way to know the true quality of a release based on just reviewing one part, manual or automated testing results. So basically, we always need to look at both of them. So having said that, it becomes obvious that there is a need to have a single source of truth for test metrics. And of course, collecting these metrics should be automated. And since QA is really about risk management, so easy and early access to information can help us better manage the risks. And so to address the issues I mentioned, we developed the product. We call it Pangolin. And Pangolin actually contains a set of plugins for the most popular CI systems like Jenkins, Bamboo, TeamCity, IBM, Urban Code. And and these CI plugins allows teams to automatically publish their test results from CI systems to TestRail. The plugins are very easy to set up and configure, and they work on all recent releases of mentioned CI applications and also TestRail. We support all major testing results formats like JUnit, testNG, NUnit, Visual Studio Tests, Cucumber, and many more. And also, teams, they can map their automation test cases to manual test cases in TestRail. This is especially useful when business analyst writes their manual test cases in TestRail and then ask automation team to automate them, execute and record results back to the TestRail. So with Pangolin in place, we actually can get a single view into project quality metrics in TestRail. So basically can use TestRail as a metrics platform and single source of information about testing. And this brings us some advantages. So the first one is reduction in communication overhead, so less emails, less meetings, and so on. And the second one, which is more important, that everyone has the same understanding of what is going on and what is failing in our system. So finally, this leads us to decreasing of time needed to make a decision on whether a particular release is ready to be shipped to the customer or not. Okay, so that was some high-level overview of the problems and the Pangolin, and now let's go a bit deeper to the technical side of things and talk about Pangolin architecture. So Pangolin basically consists of two parts. The first one is the Pangolin server, which is just a Java application hosted within your private network on some Windows or Linux machine. And the second part is the plugins for CI applications, which are available from corresponding public plugin repositories. So CI plugins basically collect testing reports and send them to Pangolin server, which in turn parses them and creates appropriate entities in TestRail using TestRail REST API. There is actually one more component which is not shown on the picture. It is a set of Java annotations and C# attributes, which allows you to integrate your test with TestRail on source code level. But I think we don't have time today to talk about this in detail, so I just wanted to mention it, and that's it. Okay, so then a couple of words about installation and configuration of Pangolin. So to start with it, you just need to first of all install the Pangolin server, and we provide the convenient installers, so it's just a matter of few mouse clicks. I won't be showing it on the demo, yeah, but it's really easy to do. The second step is installation and configuration of a plugin for your CI application. And eventually you just need to add the Pangolin step or post-build action into your CI job. Okay, so let me show you some screenshot of plugin configuration in Jenkins, because for other CI systems, the process is nearly the same, so just the UI changes a bit. And if we have some time in the end, I will just show you how it looks like in Bamboo and TeamCity. So once Pangolin server and plugin are installed, a new global settings section appears on Jenkins configuration page here. And here we just need to put some connection details like URL of the Pangolin server, the TestRail URL, user password, and so on. Yeah, once the global configuration is done, we need to add a post-build action into your job configuration, and it contains several configuration fields. And for example, the project, which is the name of the project in your TestRail instance, TestRail user and password in case if you want to override the global ones, and then the list of upload configurations, which in turn also has its own configuration parameters, like a test pass. So the test pass is just defines the place in TestRail where your test cases will be exported, and it should always start with the test suite name, and for single suite project, it always must. The next parameter is the format, which is just use JUnit here. And the result file pattern. So this pattern will be used by Pangolin to search for your results file. And since I use Maven together with JUnit, so it should be surefire reports and all XML files in this folder. So the next one is the test run. So it's simple, so just the name of the test run in TestRail. Test plan is the name of the test plan in TestRail. The next one is milestone pass. It basically allows you to map your test plan or test run to some milestone inside of the TestRail. And these three parameters, test run, test plan, and milestone pass, so if corresponding entities do not exist in TestRail, so Pangolin will create it automatically. Okay, so last but not least, case fields. So in case if you want to pass the values to some custom fields of your test case, so you can use this field and provide values to those fields basically. Okay. Also for Jenkins version 2.x and higher, Pangolin can be configured with the pipeline script, and which can be a part of Jenkins file and stored in Git. So it's also convenient if you want to use Jenkins files and want to track the history of your pipeline scripts. Okay, so now it's time for the most interesting part, I think. It's about live demo, and I'm going to show you how we can actually send some data from Jenkins to the TestRail. So I have a Pangolin server and Jenkins server installed on my machine, and also I have some simple Java Maven project with just a few tests, some dummy tests in it, just to show you the idea. Okay, and I have an empty project in TestRail with the name Pangolin demo. So let's go to the Jenkins job configuration. So it's a simple one. So I just have a Git repository where I store my project with tests. Then the Maven invocation step, which runs Maven with clean test goals, and eventually the configuration for Pangolin plugin. So I have the Pangolin demo as a project name, then TestRail user password, of course, test pass, master section 1 JUnit, format is JUnit, and so on. Test run, test plan, milestone pass, and case fields. Okay, so looks like everything in place. Let's just run the build now and see how it goes. Okay, so now it's building, running the tests. Yep, and tests of course failed because I have some failure tests. And then we can see how CI plugin send the data to TestRail. Just let's wait for another second. Okay, so it's done now. And let's examine the results. So we get C. Okay, so we can see that test cases are created for each test method in my test classes, and also the section structure also has been created. So section 1, JUnit, then the name of the class, and then we have results for all test methods here. So if I go, for example, inside of this, you can also see that the custom fields also filled with the correct values. And this is passed. So I have one step which has passed status. And if I go to the failed one, then I can see also the error and stack trace here, which is useful. So you can see immediately what failed, why failed, and yeah, basically need can do appropriate actions on it. Also, if I go to the test runs and results, so you could see that a test plan was created and a test run also was created inside of this test plan. And they are also tied to some milestones. Okay. And basically, if I run the job in Jenkins once again, so it will keep adding results to the existing run. Of course, if I not change the run name or plan name. Let me just show you it quickly and build it again. So let's wait for a few seconds. So let's go and see to the same change email step, and then we can see that the new result has been added. So basically, that's all I wanted to show you for today. And as I promised, just wanted to quickly go and show you how it looks like in TeamCity and Bamboo. So for the TeamCity, there is also a step which is called the same Pangolin upload test result into TestRail with the same configuration values. And for the Bamboo, the same story. So as I said, just slight differences in the user interface. So I think that's mostly it I wanted to show you for today. So thank you. And Simon, I will then make you a presenter again.
Thank you, Sergey.
Thank you.
Let me just get back to the right slide. So where are we? We are, any questions? All right, awesome. So we do have a few questions, Sergey. This one's from Wimcock. Does Pangolin support plugin configuration for multiple TestRail projects?
In current version, yeah, it's a good question, thank you. So in current version, we do support only one, but it's already in our backlog, and I think it will appear in one of the upcoming releases.
Okay. What's the difference between, so I think this is maybe one for me, what's the difference between test run and test plan? Currently, we only use test plan to consolidate test cases that need to be run, executed in TestRail. So conceptually, test run is a repository for your test cases, and test plan is a repository for your test runs. Using test plans in TestRail also allows you to take advantage of our configurations functionality, which would enable you to add configurations. For example, you might have a group of configurations for browser tests that you want to run. So a group would be browsers, and the actual configurations would be the individual browser types, so Chrome, Firefox, Internet Explorer, let's say. And then you can create runs for each of those configurations dynamically based upon the configurations that you've configured in TestRail. After in the notes on the blog, we'll point you towards some documentation about that stuff as well, Maria. So another one for you, Sergey. How does Pangolin handle multiple test runs and test plans? That's from Tim Wiseman.
Yeah, so basically we support this for Jenkins. We support Jenkins environment variables. You just need to specify a different run name or plan name in your configuration, or put it in some variable, and then it will be exported to a different test plan or different test run. And also, if you don't specify any, test plan or test run, so it will be creating a new test run for each run in Jenkins.
Okay, so that ties into the next question as well, I think, from Ivan Ryan, which is basically, do you need to build test runs in advance?
Nope, they will be created automatically on the fly.
Okay. So there's a question here from Priti Kumari. Can it be integrated with Git CI?
Well, that's a good question also. I'm not sure we have a plans for this particular one, but let me just write it down and see what our team says about this. But if you really need it, so you can contact us, and I think we'll figure out something.
There's another question here from Ivan. Can it support upload of screenshots to TestRail for UI tests? So
Yeah.
just to mention before you go ahead with that, Sergey, we're expecting API support for uploads of screenshots and reports to be included in the TestRail 5.7 release. That is scheduled for the end of December this year. Sergey, does Pangolin already support that?
Oh, that's a great actually question. So I was expecting it, and good to hear that the corresponding API method appears soon. We currently testing the feature of uploading screenshots with some beta customers, let's say, like in this way. And the architecture of these solutions is as follows. We actually use S3 or Minio to store the actual content files, and then we just put the links into results so you can navigate or see them in the TestRail. I expect this to be released, I think, in the next months. But then I think once official TestRail API is available, so then we can switch to storing screenshots right in the TestRail.
Got it.
So I hope it answers the question. So we have something in 1 month or something about that, but then we will. I think we will be using your official API. Okay.
That sounds good to me. So there's another question here from Maria. Is it possible to run multiple automation test runs on different test runs for different projects simultaneously at a time?
That's
so
interesting.
Multiple automation test runs for different test runs for different projects. So I'm guessing this would just depend on how you've set up your build pipeline, right?
Yeah.
If your CI server is capable of running builds in parallel, then there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to update those results in TestRail in parallel using Pangolin.
Yeah, that's correct. So it's mostly about organizing your pipeline.
So there's a similar question from Tim Wiseman. What about if we're running these against multiple environments at the same time? It's kind of the same answer, right?
Yeah, and as I said, so we can use these environment variables, at least for Jenkins. And I think for TeamCity, there's something similar. So you can just substitute it with the real value, and then your results will go to different places in the TestRail, only even if you want to reuse, for example, the existing job.
Okay, so here's an interesting question from Dan. I'm probably going to mangle this surname. Dan Gawarecki. How long do you expect a test to run? So what's the execution time? Minutes, hours, or longer? So he's kind of framed that a little bit by saying we test hardware and tests can take hours or even days. How could we reflect a running test status via Pangolin? So, I mean, I think I could add a few thoughts around that while you're thinking, Sergey. I mean,
Sure.
Certainly over the course of my career, I have run many tests myself that have taken, hours and days, typically in the realm of performance and security testing. It's not unusual for test cases to stretch out over a period of time. And I mean, conceptually, the way that I would reflect that is by updating a test case with the duration time, which I think you are able to do via the TestRail UI and the API. You can upload a test duration with your test results via the add result endpoint, I believe. So that could be one way in which you would reflect the duration of a specific test. If it took hours or days, you would simply add that time to the test result.
Yeah, that's the one way for sure. And I think we already saved the duration, if I'm not mistaken. And if not, then it's definitely somewhere in our backlog. But I think it's already released. And maybe the question is about whether we can monitor the running test and from time to time update the status in TestRail. So fortunately, this is not the part of the product right now. But yeah, as I usually said, let me think about it with our team if we can support this or not.
Yep. Okay. I'm just scanning for more answers. I think we've exhausted most of the answers now. Okay, I think we're going to leave it there with the Q&As. So the only other thing I was going to mention, Sergey, is you talked a little bit about the annotations and how Pangolin might hook into, for example, a Java or a C# test framework. Are you able to maybe talk about that a little now, or is that something for another time?
Well, we can have a short talk about this, but if we want to go into details, so I think it rather have to another webinar because it's a quite large theme.
Maybe just a quick illustration, because I think we've still got a little bit of time.
Yep, sure. So basically, let me talk about the Java, but for the C# is mostly the same. So basically, we provide a Java package, or specifically Maven dependency, and it contains a set of Java annotations, so you can just mark your test classes and your test method with our specific annotation, and then together with Maven, when the Maven executes tests, so after test execution, it reads those annotations and can automatically export your test results to the TestRail using Pangolin server, of course. So it's quite easy to configure. There is just one configuration file, but it requires some efforts to mark your source code with this kind of annotations. But it gives you most flexible way of reflecting your testing results in a TestRail. So something like that.
Okay. So is there some documentation on your site that we can point people towards if they want to know more about that aspect of integrating Pangolin with their existing test frameworks?
Yep, sure. On our website we have quite extensive documentation about this Java stuff as well, with some examples. So you can just register on the website, get the free trial, and give it a try. So there's no problem with that.
All right. So I think that wraps us up pretty nicely in that case. So Sergey, thank you very much for joining us on this webinar and for demonstrating the Agiletestware Pangolin tool. As Sergey just mentioned, you can go to the Agiletestware site and download that for a free trial if you want to, via the URL at the bottom of the page here. If you want to, please feel free to go and grab our free ebook, Skills for Agile Testers, amongst which I'm sure learning about continuous integration, continuous delivery, and building out your automation frameworks are amongst those skills. Please, if you haven't already done so, give TestRail a free trial via the link there, and keep in touch with keep in touch with the Agiletestware team, again via the link. Thanks again to Sergey.
Thank you.
And thank you everyone for attending the webinar. Goodbye. See you at the next one.
Thank you. Bye-bye.